Hey everybody,
Hi.
it's Tony and Aaron from the Wildheart
I was like,
podcast.
from where?
Where, what's our tagline?
Passion meets purpose.
Good, at least one of us remembers. It's been a month. What?
Yeah, well, I was like sick twice.
Yeah, we took a little break due to illness.
Mostly because I started sounding like I was smoking 50 packs a day.
Yeah, we had it was a cold essentially that ran through our house over the last month. The last couple weeks really.
The last two times we were supposed to film, or not film, but like
Podcast.
podcast.
And so yeah, essentially we wanted to take a break, make sure to heal up, and make sure to do our best for ourselves and, well, for you guys as well. So oh yeah, I'm looking down here.
Yeah, I know I keep looking up because I like seeing myself.
um, let's do a little catch up. We did some seed starting.
Yes.
You did a lot on that, right?
Yeah, we planted, we being our daughter and I,
Yeah.
planted some seeds. So we planted for vegetables, we did chives and green onion, two different types of peppers, and our crim tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then for herbs, we planted sage, yarrow, echinacea, lemon balm, and mint. And pretty much everything herbal has sprouted except for, well, we've gotten two sprouts for the sage, and a couple for the mint, but pretty much everything else is sprouted. Got some beautiful little plant babies coming up there. And then for our veggies, we like all of the tomatoes came up. I'm surprised. Um, so we have like about 9 tomato plants.
That's,
um,
are those the crim tomatoes?
yep.
Perfect. Last year we got screwed over as mentioned before, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm they were really good tomatoes, so I'm really looking forward to this year where we actually hopefully get to try them.
Yep.
And
I'm
we have hot peppers.
Yeah, we have two different types of peppers. So one's a cayenne, and the other one's some sort of like early California wonder pepper.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know what this is like, but they look like bell peppers, so I'm assuming they're similar.
I'd like so today I was thinking this because we ran out of the pickled banana pepper jar, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this is like, historically we just bought the banana peppers pickled from the store. I'm like, this is probably the easiest thing we could possibly start with in terms of pickling. So I feel like if we have a decent yield, last time we had we dehydrated them in the dehydrator, which was again a fine way to preserve them, but I don't find we use them as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel with pickled, I will eat them a lot more, because you and our daughter don't really like the spiciness as much. So I tend to be the one that gravitates towards the spice. Um,
Spicy.
so I feel like I eat the pickled peppers a lot more than how many pickles pickled
Peter Piper picked a peck
pickles.
of pickled
Tony
peppers.
Tony picked a pile of pickled peppers in anyway.
How many pickled peppers could Tony
Pickle.
pickle?
First, we have to figure out how many we grow.
Well,
We didn't cover today's episode topic yet.
well, it's because we weren't there yet.
Yeah,
Yeah. So far, only one little pepper baby has come up.
that's okay.
I'm hoping
Um,
for more, but we'll
we
see.
we also had we basically worked in the laundry room a lot in the last week.
Yeah.
First, there was um, our washing machine decided to kill itself in a sense. It's one of the pulleys.
I
You know,
thought you said police. One of the police,
one of
not
the police
police.
kind of exploded and needed to be rewelded back together. So, two pieces back into one. Um, and
Of course, it happens after I finished 3 loads of laundry.
that was, it gave me time to fix it, thankfully.
Yes, thankfully.
And then after that, we had. I built a shelf in there because we had to basically clear out the whole laundry room because of the
It
water all over the
leaked.
floor. So there's still a mess behind us, so you can't see it because it's kind of tactically position the camera. But yeah, there's mess here and there and there.
Not that much mess.
Yeah, we did a lot of cleaning out of there anyway, but
Should say we did.
nonetheless, I threw up shelves so we could put the 3D printers in there. Due to noise, and I've also realized that the new 3D printer I got is it shakes the desk a lot. So like when it's going, and if I'm working at the desk here, the whole thing is like going pretty aggressively. It isn't, but like over time it can be. Imagine something violently shaking persistently, and eventually things will wiggle
just need to
free.
put it on like a vat of Jello.
3D printing on Jello.
Because Jello would support the weight.
Or a Newtonian fluid. Newtonian, yeah, Newtonian fluid. Those are the ones that when you hit them hard, they're like solid, but when you like stand, they'll like.
See, but that okay. We're not gonna get into the. We're not gonna get into because if it's shaking,
yes,
you're gonna hit the solidity.
Yeah, that's the way to stay up.
Yeah, but it won't fix the jiggles.
Well, it'll not be jiggling on my desk. That's the goal.
Anyways, what are we talking about today?
Any tips you would hand on from seed starting with the little one this year?
Don't leave your mud on the floor.
Yeah, our smallest.
When you have a 10-month-old baby crawling around.
Yeah, our smallest got a mouthful.
He enjoyed it. He went in for seconds.
He was happy to be eating the muds. But yeah, lesson learned for next time.
Well, I mean,
I feel like it's a family tradition. I did it as a kid, and I feel you said
our daughter had some one time when we were planting flowers out in the front.
That's a thing. Kids
and
eat
then
mud.
it was funny because she took a handful, ate it, and didn't eat it, but she tasted it, and then she did the sign for more, and I was like, no, you can't have more.
We didn't teach him the sign language.
No,
yet.
I haven't really. I've been trying, but secondborn
Highly distracted.
Stuff. You have more time with your firstborn than you do with your secondborn.
Truth.
Yeah.
We did some spring cleaning. We started spring cleaning, but the weather's kind of turned down. It snowed today again.
Yeah.
So spring cleaning's been halted.
Yeah, I just literally want to yeet everything out of our door. I haven't seen this in 2 years. Out the door. Gone. Don't need you.
Fire pit can get busy. I don't mind.
I'm not burning all of it.
Burn it all. No.
Right. Tony Two Fires.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
I asked you that.
Well, I'm pointing.
What is Bitcoin?
What is Bitcoin? So
we are what is Bitcoin.
We are what is Bitcoin. So today's episode is just understanding Bitcoin from a Canadian perspective. So it's there's a significant event happening in the Bitcoin space.
The halving.
It's the halving, not happening.
The happening.
Halving. It's halving.
Halving.
The halving. I heard a really good explanation of what the halving is today, so I'd like to reiterate. Every day, there are Bitcoin that are mined by computers. These are specifically designed computers to mine these Bitcoin.
Take a little mine axis and they go ting 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 ting.
Yeah, that's the visual representation. The actuality is they're just doing complex math problems. These complex math problems get easier or harder depending on how good or bad the computers are. So if the computers suddenly they get a crazy computer that's able to calculate very efficiently within a week or two, the algorithm, I guess it would be, changes and it makes it more difficult. It adjusts for the existing processing power of the miners.
Fascinating.
That way it keeps it up or down, and it goes the other way as well. If suddenly half of the world's computers, especially the ones that were mining or something, suddenly disappeared or something happened, it would adjust the other way so that more people could mine at a lower efficient. Anyway, so these computers, they're mining, and they earn Bitcoin daily. So there's every day right now there's about 900 Bitcoin that are mined every day.
900.
900. So that means that 900 computers that mined this Bitcoin somewhere in the world will they'll each get one or whatever that is. However much there's pools, and we won't get into that.
Yes, there's complex
The
math
900 go
problems
out to the world, so they're essentially created, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in the world. It's math. It is math. Every halving, that number, which is currently 900, gets halved. So today we're getting 900, tomorrow we're getting 900, the day after we're getting 900. After the halving, we're going to get 450 every day. Essentially, it's a scarcity mechanism, so that every day you're losing the amount that you mine, aka get, aka that's flowing into the economy. Therefore, it is more rare, harder to come by, and usually that means scarcity price goes up. Historically, it has, at least. So, yeah, it's a lot of the time. Do you have any questions about that? I guess is the first thing. Since I feel like I've been reading and following it a lot longer. And so if you have any questions, please pipe in. We're good.
You're good. Because
So
I don't even know what to ask.
that's fair. So the purpose of the halving is essentially to control inflation. That way, it's a limited resources. It's a limited resource. The miners, unfortunately, they get less money. So that's a fact of being a miner. The goal, hopefully, as a miner, I'd imagine, is that due to the price inflating, you're still making equivalent. That way you're making your at least your power costs, because if you're green, and if you're using solar, or if you still add the initial cost of the solar array or whatnot, or the hydro, but hopefully you're paying for their power, and that's and then some is really the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know what a commodity is?
Things that buy.
Commodities, essentially things like gold, silver. It's a store of value.
Store things that buy.
Things that buy.
I just English well.
So essentially something that you can save and put it away, and then exchange for a value at a later time. So whether it's your
Coffee beans in the apocalypse, or
coffee beans in the apocalypse, bullets in the zombie apocalypse, and hazmat suits in the nuclear apocalypse. So let's say, I don't know.
Water bottles in drought.
In drought. With Bitcoin, it's essentially been established that Bitcoin is a commodity. So it's equivalent to something like gold, silver, and so forth. One of the good things about that, it's that now that it's been essentially defined and tax purposes, I guess, there is there's a legitimization to it. They have ETFs that have in Canada, they've been around for a while. In the States, it's relatively new, so that's been again even more legitimized. And then Hong Kong is on the way. Did you know that Hong Kong has like some of the highest per capita millionaires in the world?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's supposedly, if I forget the number now, but like millionaires under 33, it's like 7% of the population is essentially millionaires in Hong Kong. But
The funny thing about that is that my brain is like, we should just move to Hong Kong. Somehow that'll make us millionaires.
well, I'm over 33, so that
I will be that this year. Are you saying my time is short?
Well,
I do not have the time to become this millionaire.
First off, we got to figure out how we get to Hong Kong.
We just go to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is not a good place to go right now.
No,
They're having a whole thing with China and everything.
Yeah,
I do not plan on immigrating there.
They have been re-gifted back to China from the British Empire.
Is that what it is?
Yes, essentially.
That sounds like a bad time.
Basically, if I remember correctly with my history, Britain adopted them after some sort of war. Adopted forcefully. And Hong Kong people really, well, I can't say they loved it, but like, it was good for them. They had a lot of freedom that people in mainland China did not have. And then when they were gifted back to China recently, it did not go well because they were like, we have all this freedom, and China's like, nah, no freedoms.
we don't do freedom here.
Yeah, so they've been struggling. That's why it's not the only reason why they've been having some struggles, but that is.
It's not a good time. Back to Bitcoin.
China, Hong Kong.
Well,
millionaires.
Fun fact: China's tried to ban Bitcoin 3 times now. A lot of people say, oh, they would just all they have to do is just ban it and it'll go away. But if there's any territory
Let's talk about drugs with that same sentiment.
If there's any territory that's capable of locking something down in any capacity, I would vote China or North Korea. I don't know about North Korea, but I know China's tried to ban Bitcoin 3 times now. So unsuccessfully, they've been unable to stop it. And, it does affect the Bitcoin as a whole in the sense that when they banned it the last time, the hash rate, aka the miners, gets cut down. So essentially, they'll crack down on the people mining, and whether it's they track them down through their power usage or otherwise, it's essentially the global rate of hash rate gets affected for a week or two. And then, as mentioned before, the hash rate adjusts to whatever the existing hash rate is. So, yeah, if China can't ban it, I think it's pretty good to stick around.
Mm-hmm.
The advantages of Bitcoin. Why? I guess, from what you know, why do you like it?
I feel like we should just back it up a little bit and be like, what is Bitcoin? For people who may not know what Bitcoin is in general.
It's digital currency.
It's decentralized.
Yes. It's using the blockchain as a technology to keep track of what is on it. So if you imagine a spreadsheet.
It's a massive ledger where if you buy, sell, or trade, it is
written down there. And so from the beginning to today, every transaction is recorded, and it doesn't say you have this transaction. It just has your string of numbers and letters. That is your wallet, which is no different from the wallet on at your bank, if you will.
Yeah. It's like an account number.
Yeah, you have an account number and a password to it, and that becomes yours. Mm-hmm. So as long as you have those 2 things and you take personal responsibility to not lose them, you will have them. Key aspect of that is personal responsibility. If you lose it, there's nobody to call for tech support to retrieve it. That's very important to note if you do go down this road. Unlike current traditional currencies, it also has the fact that it is decentralized. Current fiat is centralized at a bank. They can print as much as they want of it, and they also, to a certain extent, are leaning towards controlling the bulk of it.
Which we saw with some of the Canadian truckers.
Yeah.
Or people who supported the Canadian truckers.
Yeah, that was definitely an aspect of it. And there was a funny letter that went out to the RCMP when that happened, when they tried to crack down on the Bitcoin aspect of things during that. It was essentially, dear RCMP, we cannot control the Bitcoin. You should read up what it is and come back and talk to us after. But yeah, that's one aspect of they can. There's nobody to control it other than you. So, advantage in my humble opinion. There is some anonymity, but there is on ramps and off ramps that, especially in Canada, that you have to abide by to stay within your legal requirements that have KYC. So that's
Know your client.
Know your client, which basically is identity. So
Identity and like what your risk profile is, so that heaven forbid you start investing more than you can afford.
Life savings, and it gets tricky with leverage stuff, which means you're taking out loans to buy the stuff. I would never recommend doing that, but essentially how we've been doing it is just coffee money. It's like, as much as I wish we had millions to put into it, we don't. But it's one of those things that, like, hey, if I could buy a coffee for this quantity this week, I'll just put it a little bit into Bitcoin. And it's added up over the years. But, the idea is to have some form of savings. It's not our entire savings portfolio, but it's a portion of. And I think it's important to bring up, because of that, just diversification. Make sure you have different avenues of investing, and especially when there's so many uncertainties in the world. Any questions?
I don't know. I'm like, has answered it pretty well. What else can I say? You did ask me a question. Cannot remember how did. I don't know. I got into it because you told me to. Not really.
Yeah. Well, it behooves you to learn about it.
Well, yeah, I know.
We don't need to talk about like the apps or anything. If people want to know from a Canadian perspective, because it is different from a lot of the rest of the world, we could go into that in a future episode. How what the on ramps are and what the off ramps are. I'd probably want to do a little bit more research about that, just to make sure all Canada is covered, because I'm sure there's intricacies in different provinces and so on and so forth.
Probably.
And just beyond that, there's tax implications too. Like we're, just to be sure that everything is clear. I don't want to be misinforming on that, but
essentially, do your research.
Yeah, always do your own research. We're not investment folks, and we don't claim to be, but yeah, essentially do your own research. But yeah, that's the bulk of it, and you should try doing a little bit of research today if you have any inkling that you should get into it.
Where would be a good place for people to start? If they just came across this podcast, this episode, it was like, I've never heard of Bitcoin before, which that would be kind of shocking. But if they've never heard of Bitcoin before, they're like, where do I go to get more information?
There's always the Googles. I tend to gravitate towards YouTube and podcasts personally, just because my line of work and being able to do something while I listen to it or drive or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I've listened to quite a bit of what Bitcoin did as a podcast. I listened to Guy Swan as a podcast. I've listened to Bitcoin Breakout as a podcast. A lot of those are good primer. What is money? And some of them are more philosophical than others, but yeah, I mean, those are good starts.
Awesome.
So if you like those podcasts, feel free to like ours as well, because we're talking about it now too, evidently.
Like,
I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know. I don't know either.
Well, shall we cap it off there?
Was there anything else you wished to speak of? I know you had like a whole bunch of notes. We talked about the happening. We talked about the
halving.
I don't know why I keep calling it the happening. Because it's happening. The halving. The halving.
The halving is happening.
The halving is happening. The happening.
Yeah, I would really just make sure to do your own research, look into your exchanges, make sure that you're... Oh, sorry. I guess there was one last thing. If you're investing any significant amount into it, make sure to hold your own keys. And all that means is to have your own wallet that you've done your research on, whether it's a physical wallet with air gap or a software wallet that you trust. Make sure to anything over what you're comfortable losing to put away into a wallet. So what that means is you have your exchanges, which are essentially, think of a stock exchange when it comes to stocks,
where you purchase
where
the
you
Bitcoin.
purchase, you convert from Canadian or American currency to your Bitcoin,
or
and then
other crypto.
other cryptos. And then you can take that and transfer it to your wallet, which is, think of your actual wallet on, in your pocket. It's more safe in your pocket than it is on the exchange, because if the exchange goes down or disappears, or Google any exchange, Bitcoin exchange articles in the past, FTX, Gox, so on and so forth, your Bitcoin will disappear and it's not yours. So not your keys, not your coin is the saying. So make sure to take ownership and do not lose your keys. Write them down in a safe spot.
A spot that is not visible to others.
Yeah, safe digital is not ideal, but anything that's physical, make sure it's safe and accessible, fireproof, all of the rest. So
make up a little rhyme or a song with your 12 words.
Yeah. Whatever works.
Memorize them in a weird way.
So
build your memory palace.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. If you're looking into memorization, look into the memory palace.
How I should do it.
Well, yeah, that's how Einstein did it. Moonwalking with Einstein. Read a book. Read that book.
Read a book.
Read that book if you're looking into memorizing. That's how people can memorize a deck of cards in minutes. But anyway, fun.
Mm-hmm. So why would we want to include Bitcoin in our portfolio?
Diversification from the current economic system. It's essentially a hedge against the dollar. As the dollar, by definition, has inflation, it's built into the dollar as per central banks. They do not have a limit on how much money they can print. It's controlled as per them. Whether it is or not is another thing. I'm not going to argue that, but it is designed to have inflation because of the math of Bitcoin and its hard limit of 21 million. It will counter the inflation by default because there is a limit. So as the fiat money supply inflates, Bitcoin price will go up. So it's inversely proportional. So it's a hedge against the dollar, essentially, is the short answer.
Gotcha. Bitcoin as digital gold.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at gold, physical gold, as part of your portfolio as well. But if you compare gold to Bitcoin in its entire life, you could look at any. I mean, if you look from the creation of Bitcoin to today, performance and the pick your timeline of gold. Generally, it'll outperform. In fact, I'm pretty sure it'll outperform any segment of time, generally speaking. Um, yeah, I mean, even then, like the gains on Bitcoin are significantly more. The ETFs that have been created recently have been the most successful ETFs in history, from my understanding. So, like, no ETF has performed better than the Bitcoin ETF to date. And then, yeah, it's one of those things where uh, the more adopted it becomes, the more solidified it becomes, and people who, with ETFs coming into existence,
And just ETF being exchange traded fund.
yes, so that's something where essentially the stock market can go, oh, I want to invest into Bitcoin, but not actually buy a Bitcoin on an exchange or anything. They're essentially using the stock market existing to purchase Bitcoin. So it's essentially a way to take, let's just say, a locked in category of money, so whether it's Lira or RRSP, you can take a segment of that, invest it into a ETF, and still have the gains of Bitcoin growing while not holding the Bitcoin. It's essentially holding it through a third party, which is your ETF fund that you're investing in.
Does not sound as fun. But if you're into traditional investing, that might
Yeah,
be
it has the safety of the traditional stock market in the regulation and everything, and you don't have to worry about an exchange disappearing overnight like FTX did when it imploded last year. And all of your, if you were holding a significant amount of money on that exchange, then it disappears.
Yep.
You don't have that happening in the traditional stock market, generally speaking. And there's been cases, obviously. What was it, Exxon Mobil? But
something like that.
things happen, and it happens at every money supply. So,
Yes.
anything else?
If you were going to give advice to a younger you about Bitcoin, what would you do? What would you say?
In 2008, buy as much as you can. But yeah, obviously, I would have got into mining a lot sooner. I would have got into just daily or dollar cost averaging a lot sooner. Dollar cost averaging essentially is the lowest resistance way to get into investing into something like this, in my humble opinion, unless you have a chunk of change that you just literally have sitting in a savings account earning negative interest because of inflation. You're better off putting it into some form of investment, because that way you're not losing money on the inflation. But what you put it into is up to you. You could take what you're comfortable paying in Bitcoin. Just say, let's say, oh, I'm only comfortable 25% of my investments into Bitcoin, lump sum in there. The rest can go into traditional, whatever you choose. You could go into real estate, whatever, pick your favorite. But the dollar cost averaging is essentially taking a little bit every week, every 2 weeks, every month, and just throwing it into an account, and it just slowly adds up. You don't have to wait for the market to go low or high. You just do it on a assigned date or assigned timeline, and that way your over time averages out to growth, opposed to timing the market all the time and trying to watch the number go up and down, and which it will. It's volatile still. It's still a relatively young asset class, and so it does fluctuate. It goes up, down. If you're looking to have quick gains or you're trying to time in and out all the time, you're generally going to lose out if you're not good at it. And when you're investing into Bitcoin, you're doing it for your kids. Like, if as more and more people get into it, it'll become more and more scarce, and it will. The goal for me at least is to really get some form of wealth for generationally for our family, and that's it doesn't have to be crazy, but it's something that they'll appreciate.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing that I would say is like you could always do the woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? Because like even looking back when we got married in 2017 and we looked at the Bitcoin prices and we are like, oh, we should have put some of our like social money onto this. Because I think a Bitcoin was like $1,000 at a time.
Yeah.
Or at that time.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, there's lots of points in our past where coulda, shoulda, woulda, but
even when it was 22,000, right? Like, oh, I should have put more money in. But
the saying for that is, you get the price that you deserve.
Well, and I think too, like it's going to continue to trend up. So wherever you start, you're going to, hopefully, if things keep going the way that they're going, you should be able to make some form of investment in it.
Yeah, and you're not holding it to make money necessarily. You're holding it so that you are retaining your wealth that you've earned over time. And again, to counter inflation, which is essentially theft via printing money. If you take $2 and print two more, you've essentially made those two initial dollars worth half as much. So it's with the existing system, by default, you're losing money. And to fight that, you have to invest in something that outpaces the inflation. Whether you believe what they say the inflation is or the actual inflation, that's what you're fighting against, essentially. Yeah. So, long story short, get a little bit of some investment so that you can outpace inflation.
So yeah, like the $20 that I put on Bitcoin tomorrow will be $20 of Bitcoin, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now.
If not more.
Well, not $20 worth. It'll still be the same amount of worth, if not more.
Yeah.
Essentially.
You're retaining your wealth, if not growing it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
Opposed to if you had $20 sitting in a bank account or in a bill under your mattress, that would be losing money by default.
Yes.
So, long story short, get some Bitcoin if you can.
Do your research and know what you can invest, and then get some Bitcoin.
Yeah, why not? Anyway, well, it's been quite the week, so we'll probably call it there.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
Thanks for tuning in. And enjoy the rest of your week. And like, subscribe, all the fun stuff.
Comment your favorite part of this podcast.
What you'd like to hear more of. And
ask us questions. I like questions.
Yeah. She'll answer all of the questions. And
I will redirect them to you if they're Bitcoin related.
We could answer them together. Thanks again. Take care.
Bye.